Hello, my name is Soni Midha, and I am the virtual content specialist for Algebra 2. And so today I'm going to be talking about the Explore activity from Unit 6, Day 11. And Day 11 is how do we identify periodic functions on the coordinate plane. So what this activity has students doing is essentially a card sort. And the purpose of this activity is really for students to compare different function types with a focus on periodic and non-periodic functions. So what students will get is a bunch of different graphs, and I'll actually show you what those graphs look like. So you'll notice that these are a variety of graphs. There are actually 16 different graphs here. And so students will look at these graphs, they'll go through these graphs, and really what they're going to be doing is comparing them, right? And figuring out different categories that they can place these graphs in. And so what this does, it really helps students to construct their understanding of what, these graphs of periodic functions can look like to really prepare them for future lessons that are going to be focusing on the cosine and sine graphs. So there's a couple of ways that you can do this activity. I think the best way virtually to do this is through Desmos using their card sort feature. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to explain how to create a card sort on Desmos, and then I'll talk a little bit more about just sort of how to do this lesson on there. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go to teacher.desmos.com and you're going to create a new activity. And so that's what was going to look like when you create your new activity. Now, if you look at the bottom left corner of your screen, so right over here, there's this button that says card sort. You want to go ahead and just click on the card sort button and your card sort pops up. Now, what I recommend is to take screenshots of all of those graphs that I had just shown. So you'll have 16 different screenshots. Those will serve as your cards that students will be, sorting out and putting into different categories. So the way to create this is you're going to click on this button image. And once you click on this button image, this box appears, and you can either drag your screenshots into here one by one, or you can click on this and then choose your screenshot. So I'm clicking on it right now, and then I'm just picking one of the screenshots that I had taken, and right away it pops up. And I definitely recommend clicking on large card. It's not mandatory, but it does help for students to see the graphs better. I'll just click on preview so you can see what it looks like when it's a small graph versus when it is a large graph. So again, it's definitely like easier to look at if you click on large card. Now you're going to do this 16 times, right? You're going to click on image and then you're going to choose your graphs, all 16 different graphs, and you're going to place them on here. And then you're going to create a title or instructions for your students. So I've already done this on another slide, so I'm just going to show you what this looks like. You'll notice again, there's 16 different cards here, and I wrote the instructions to sort the following into groups. Now, you definitely want to see what this looks like before publishing it. So you just go ahead and click on preview, and what you'll notice is that there are all the graphs here. Now, just a couple of quick tech tips. I always encourage students to click on this button right here. This is the full screen button. And the reason that I encourage them to click on it is because now I can see all of the graphs. They're a lot bigger. There's more space really to move things around. And so in order to group graphs together on Desmos, what you're going to do is, let's say I want to, sort M and C together. I want to put them in one category. What I would do is I would click on graph C and I would move it towards graph M. And I kind of hover over it until graph M turns blue. You'll notice that in the background it's blue. Once that happens, I just unclick graph C, and right away the cards have been sorted together. And I could put as many cards as I want into one card sort. I'm putting a bunch. I mean, hopefully students won't do everything all in one, but that's pretty much how you do that. Now, if you want to take a card out, you just click on it. Say I want to take card E out. I would just click on it and then drag it outside of the sort. And so now again, it's by itself. So that's the way to actually create those card sorts, how students can do it. Now, when you're trying to, start this activity, what I would recommend is to arrange students into groups of 2 and tell them that in this activity, they're going to be sorting some cards into categories of their choosing. So when they sort their cards, they should be working with their partner to come up with the categories. And I definitely recommend you to encourage students to think about why they're categorizing these graphs into whatever types of categories they are creating, and be, prepared to really sort of just like explain or describe your categories. So different types of sorts that they might do. They might sort by function type, right? Linear, exponential, quadratic, periodic. They might sort by data type, continuous versus discrete. They could also sort by vertical intercept or even by range, right? Only positive values, only negative values, things like that. So again, you want students to be doing this. And what's great about Desmos is that you can actually monitor what they're doing while they're doing it. And so the way to do that is via the teacher dashboard. So I'm just going to show you what that looks like as well. This is an example of the teacher dashboard, and you'll notice there's one student on right now. That's the one student there. And if I hover over it, I can actually see their name. I called myself student. And you can also see what student is doing. So if I just click on this, I can actually see, oh, okay, this student decided to group graph L and graph J together. Right. So just sort of like seeing what each group is doing while they're doing it is really, really helpful, because it does feel more like you're back in school watching them do this. Now, after they have created their card sorts, you can do one of two things. You can pause the activity, and the way to pause the activity is by clicking on, in the teacher dashboard, clicking on pause. That way no students can work on the activity while it's paused. And you can then have students really to, you can have a whole class discussion, and you can have students describe their categories and why they chose their sorts the way that they did. So you can have it, you can have students do this in a whole class discussion way. You could also have students write on Desmos. So after creating their sort, what they can do is they can go to, and I'll actually show it to you this way, they can go to the next slide and they can name each of their groups from the previous slide and then describe each group. So there's two different methods you could do. Again, if you prefer having whole class discussions where your students are chatting their explanations or unmuting themselves, you can do it that way, or you can also have them write about it. Now, after you do this, you can, if you have more time, you can do another sort. You can have students after they share the categories they chose, they can choose new categories and sort their cards again. And students can choose as many types of categories as time allows, but I think the most important thing here is to really just make sure that when they're doing this and when you're having that conversation, that at least one set of categories distinguishes between function types, right? That's the ultimate goal here, to see the function types like linear, quadratic, exponential, periodic, because this will allow them to get ready for this idea of periodic versus non-periodic functions, which will come directly after this.